Good night. I am KEMAR Stewart. Welcome to Alternate Views. I am your host this evening, and I want to welcome you to the program yet another Thursday. I'm here with you on the 12th of December. Thank you very much for tuning in. Taking your time out to be here with us. I want to welcome you all to this evening's session. Without further ado, let me get fellow host on the inside, Ramon Goodman. Welcome, Ramon, to Alternate Views. How are you doing this evening, sir?
Good night, viewers. Good night, Kimar. Everything blessed with my side, as usual. Extremely glad to be here, Kimar, on yet another show. I don't know uh, after this what I will do with my Thursday nights, Kimar. To be honest with you, right? Uh, as usual, to the viewers, continue to follow, continue to subscribe, continue to say reason, and all open doors where you're concerned. And tonight is going to be another special night, another good show, great show. As we got some special guests tonight. And also good night to Nigel. Nigel will be coming in shortly, and he will be also on the panel for tonight. The special guest, Mr. Watson Duke. Watson Duke. Obviously, he'll be actually receiving an introduction, some form of introduction from Mr. Nigel Franklin. He should soon be on set. But again, pleasure being here as usual, and I'm looking forward in a serious way to having a fantastic show as usual.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Greetings. Thank you for having me once again. Greetings, Kimar, Ramon,
Bless up.
all alternate viewers. Big up on themselves. Thank you for being here with us another Thursday night. Very excited, very excited for this show. As all shows, alternate views is a very rare space, and I think we should salute that. So again, thank you for having me on, and salute to the viewers.
All right.
Well, thank you very much, fellas. I'm happy to be with you this evening. This evening's episode is sponsored by Lifelong Learning and endorsed by the CPSI and the Caribbean Program Studies Institute. Uh, we also want to acknowledge our award-winning status of Emergent Venture of 2024, and to say that alternative fuels was labeled as a bold idea leading to transformative economic and social change across the Caribbean and the wider world. So, good evening to all of the alternative viewers, the early patrons, supporters, Mystic Angel, the same blessed evening, everyone. It's a blessing to be here. So, thank you very much, Mystic. Danielle, saying good evening. Thank you very much. Good evening to you, Danielle. Mildred Banks, welcome, Mildred. Aisha Harding, the same blessed good evening. Good night to all. Good night to you, Aisha. Thank you for tuning in. Marcia, the same good evening. Tomorrow morning guests and all alternate viewers. We say good evening to you too, Marcia. Pedro Gemma, thank you very much, Pedro, for tuning in. Christopher Harris is saying good evening, uh, James. So thank you very much, Christopher, for tuning in. Good evening to all the viewers in Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales, further Europe, and Africa, across South America, and to the wider Caribbean. We welcome you all to this evening's episode of Alternate Views as we discuss Tobago being an autonomous island. with none other than Watson Juke. But before we get into the session with Mr. Juke, I wanted to show you what gifts I received over the weekend, as it was both my birthday and Nigel's birthday. Um, Saturday, the Sabbath day of the week, the seventh day of the month. Um, for some reason, everybody thought it would be nice to give me books. So I got three books for my birthday. Uh, One of these books, let me guess, one of these books being is called Love and Power. Love and Power, Caribbean Discourses on Gender. Um, and this was a gift. It's edited by Professor Eugene Barato. Uh, this was a gift from Miss Maxine McLean. I hope I can say that on here. This was a gift from her. Very good book, Love and Power. So at some point in time, what we usually do with our books, we're going to have some serious discussion on these books. Um, we got a book called Living Black in Barbados. Living Black in Barbados by Wendell C.C. Challenger. And this was from Aisha Harding. So we want to say thank you very much, Aisha, for the gift. Um, this book, I was said, was written by Mr. Randall Callender. Randall was also the editor on Alternate Views, the book. He was also the editor on Dr. Dennis Lewis' The Journey, the path to true self-meaning. So Randall, again, living black in Barbados, I'm definitely going to do book review on this. December the 25th was Randall Calendar's birthday. So I know I said that this was going to be our last show, but um, circumstances may change and may have to do additional shows down into December because Christmas is coming up and we want to do some tributes with Randall Calendar, whose birthday is on Christmas. And we want to also acknowledge former Prime Minister David Thompson, whose birthday is also on Christmas, I believe, as well too. Um, I got a third book. A third book. This one is called Politics, Heights and Valleys. Politics, Heights and Valleys. And this is by the calendar once more. And this was a gift from Margot Joint Calendar, who's the publisher of Alternate Views and the publisher of all of the books, including this one, Living Black in Barbados, Alternate Views, The Journey. Uh, Margot Joint Calendar is the publisher for all of these brilliant pieces of literature, all done by brilliant Barbadians. So let
Living Black
us,
in Barbados sound very interesting. I think that sound like a good read.
yeah. So we want to take a quote from Living Black in Barbados, right? So just give me a random page, and I'll go to that page, and we read from Living Black in Barbados. Any random number between 10 and 200.
I got 69.
69.
I I call 30. So you pick.
Yeah. We're going to do both. We're going to do both. We're going to go straight to page 69 on Living Black in Barbados and see what that shows us. So it says here that, woo, Interestingly enough, this is very political.
Uh,
This is a very serious political
right.
job that you guys landed right upon for living black in Barbados. Um, but we speak the truth, so I'm going to read it. It says here that, interestingly enough, this same Christopher Sinclair, against whom the leader of opposition and the current prime minister may more morally have brought a vote of no confidence, in which he labeled him as the worst minister of finance, was selected to be a member of the Jobs and Investment Council. The restructuring of the country's debt reduced the net worth of the middle class and senior citizens, whose peace of mind was punctured. The black population, particularly those who advanced in years, were made to suffer short-term loss from bonds, which they had bought with the hope of having some financial protection when they needed it most. The government's handling of COVID protocols, which reflected a seemingly unconcern for the smaller businesses and cultural artists, continued to create misgivings. Additionally, this hints that mandatory vaccination is an option being actively considered by the government in the way of its heavy promotion and urging by prominent figures in the private sector who also continue to rattle and who have concerns with the efficiency and the safety of vaccines, among other considerations. On August the 7th, 2021, the signs of disagreement with the view and other messages of the Prime Minister took the form of a walk of 2,000 persons through the city to Independence Square, with the statue of the Great Walter Barrow looming large around a protesting crowd, with chants of "Mayor must go, Mayor must go" were loudly proclaimed as the crowd walked along the street. The hints of lurking despotism of a leader so early in her career have created an uneasy feeling among those who have taken to social media to vent their feelings. I think I should stop now.
Well, the thing about it is, I've never read the book. I haven't read it as yet, and that hit hard, real hard. So I don't know if you should listen. I don't know if you should read page 30 yet because we seem to have a sixth sense here, Nigel. Don't
Man,
you
I,
are
I thought you know some of that. I didn't know.
nah, boss, nah. So
All right.
it
So
hit hard, but yeah, it's been hit that hard. Whoa.
hmm hmm
page 30, page 30, section 1 of the book. It says the emergence of blacks in colonial Barbados. Barbados, as a colony of Britain, came into being in 1627 with 50 white settlers and 10 African slaves. Henceforth, up to emancipation in 1838, the slave system functioned smoothly to maintain a system of racial discrimination and segregation. White supremacy over blacks in Barbados persisted for some time after emancipation, and this was a society in which the black ex-slaves were legally free from the bonds of perpetual servitude, but few other options other than to work on the sugar plantation. Even within the church, blacks were forced to accept several positions with little hope of whether to become priests or even deacons after emancipation. In 1928, they seemed to gain more recognition when one of the first Covington College black graduates ascended to the lofty position of Anglican curate in the person of Reverend Reginald Barrow, the father of the Barbados' first Prime Minister, the Right Excellent Errol Walter Barrow. Racism persisted undisturbed in a number of critical areas such as the control of sugar plantations, other landed property, merchant houses in Bridgetown, the earliest hotels in the tourist industry, the transport vehicles, telephone, electricity, and telegraph services. In terms of the public service, White Barbadians were the earliest teachers after emancipation until they graduated to more lucrative occupations. White Barbadians of elite and middle class status established their own enclave housing spaces outside of the plantations. These were the famous suburbs of Belleville, Strathclyde, Navy Gardens, Hastings, Worthing, and Club Morgan in the early 20th century. The tourist industry in terms of hotels, guest houses, and clubs, many of which were founded in the 1950s, were also projecting an image of white dominance. A House of Assembly was established in 1645 when the island was divided into 11 parishes, each parish choosing two persons to represent it, and of course the white landowners at that time dominated the House of Assembly. So Ramona is basically page 30 into 33.
Yeah, well, that was a little later. For sure. That was
Yeah.
a bit later
Yeah.
than 69. That was basically.
I wonder though, how many Barbadians know that Barbados' father was the first graduate from Rogers and College? I don't think that common knowledge.
I never knew
Yeah,
that, honestly.
I first time learning that. That's the first time I hear that.
Wow, what a coincidence. What a coincidence.
Mm,
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 Yes,
mm.
yeah.
that's pretty good.
Strange enough, I was recently at Colleton College when I gave a video, when I did my last video. Um, trying to get it here on the screen. I did my last video speaking to Barbados and the International Monetary Fund. And Covington College is a place that I hold in great serene and peace. I went there a lot as a young boy, on picnics a lot. I grew up there to learn that Covington College is the place that most preachers and priests and they go to learn the trade of being a pastor or whatever. Um, so yeah, I really didn't know that was
I haven't been there in a while. There's still fishing and so forth in the pond.
well, the pond kind of almost right up
Oh
a
boy.
kind of a way, so it still has some thing. But then over on the other side, whereas there's the big pond. Um, it still has the fish and other shrubbery and stuff in it that made it so beautiful.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I've been there. I've been there actually when 2000 and that's before COVID, but that was the last time I actually have been there. Now I'm glad you mentioned though KEMAR that you can run the shows down a little close to Christmas because as I said before initially, I don't know what I can do on my Thursday nights if I am not on this show. Right? To be honest with you. Right. So I'm extremely thankful. To be honest with you. Very, very thankful. And the viewers, I believe the viewers are as well.
Okay. I recall one comment I saw saying alternate views is like dope. I said,
Yeah,
shh,
I saw
you
that. I
got
saw that too.
that gotta be
That's
hard, boy.
boy, yeah, you got that right. You got that right, boy. Let me tell you something.
No.
That was really good. I think it really struck me when people started to debate in
Hmm.
the council. That's pretty good.
For sure, for sure.
It goes to show
And
the topics were hard hitting, man, for sure. And I
mhm,
know with that.
mhm,
Yeah. I see
mhm.
Kimar trying to actually put up the video. So viewers just bear with us as Kimar tries to, a little you know how technology is. So yeah, there we go. See? Voila.
Now, many persons may be wondering, why is the IMF director in Barbados at this time? Saturday, December the 7th, is the 2-year anniversary that Barbados has signed a new IMF program, and this equates to approximately 7 years Barbados was under an IMF austerity imposed program. Now, Barbados is the first country in the world to sign on to the Resilience and Sustainability Trust as a partnership with the IMF. And in total, our public debt to date is 14.8 billion. Now, overall, our indebtedness to the IMF is only $759 million, a part of that $14.8 billion. The IMF was here just a month ago in November. So many persons are asking the question, where's the head of the IMF back in Barbados so soon? Now, after the last IMF visit in November, the IMF reported that they reached a staff level agreement with the Barbadian authorities, which signify that Barbados is set to go under additional austere measures, as the traditional IMF program is either 18 months for extended fund facility or 24 months in some instances. And December 7th marks 2 years, or approximately 24 months, Barbados was under the new IMF facilities. Now, we are set to roll out a new electricity supply act, which will indeed open up the electricity market to allow for new investors to participate in the market. Now, the rate increase that is being applied for by the Light and Power is necessary, according to the authorities, to have a renewable energy transition, and the IMF's Resilience and Sustainability Trust providing $153 million to Barbados. We can now see why this program, which is the first of its kind in the world, will be heavily monitored by the head of the IMF. So I urge all Barbadians to pay close attention, as electricity rates will likely go up in the rate increase, which will allow the authorities to fund this transition. Good day. I am KEMAR Stewart. Now, many persons.
Hey, so there you have it. Nice video at Cotterton College. It spoke to the presence of the International Monetary Fund and uh, the green transition. So just wanted to show persons, Ramon and NIGEL, that as part of alternative views, taking in understanding, like Cotterton College is a theological college. Um, we look at the persons like Dr. Dennis Lowe, who uh, pursue studies in theology, you know, um, and we see from his writing the depths of his wisdom. So even Codrington College and the religious background that Barbados has, a traditionally Anglican background, right, plays a substantial role in the history of Barbados. In that the Anglican Church, which is traditionally the Church of England, right, established its roots in Barbados, and Barbados is traditionally a majority of the population is indeed Anglican, right? So Anglicanism was a big thing, or it's still a big thing in Barbados. And next to every rum shop was almost a church, if you guys could remember um, that saying. A majority of the oldest churches in Barbados were indeed Anglican churches. Right? So it was good to learn from Vanu, boy living black in Barbados, about Barrow and his father becoming the first black Codrington College graduate to ascend to the position of Anglican curate, Reginald Barrow. So we want to applaud a mighty Barbadian. No, sorry. So we also said something there, or was said in the book, that racism persisted undisturbed in Barbados. And Ramon, I wanted to know, what did you call the number 30? Is it because we turned 30 on Saturday that you use that number?
No, no. Actually, it was Nigel that said the number 30, right?
Oh,
I
sorry,
said,
sorry, sorry.
yeah, yeah.
Wait,
I said the other number, right?
Yeah.
And we just obviously we leave it at that, and we move forward, right?
mm. But yes, you're correct, Kimura. That is exactly why they said number 30, and it provided some very poignant information.
Yeah. Well, on page 33 of Living Black in Barbados, um, these two paragraphs stood out to me. This is the first time I'm reading this book, by the way. I must admit that I do have a section in Living Black in Barbados,
All right.
but I've never read the book. I just wrote a particular section, the economic section. So I know how to peruse and read it for the first time. That's me
And
beginning.
Kimar, just before you go on, right? We always hear about editors, you know. You obviously you have first hand experience where editors are concerned. We hear the word editor all the time when it comes to books. Editor, editor, editor. For the viewers, what is really the role of an editor? Uh, Kimar,
Well,
from based on your experience.
well, the editor is somebody that would peruse the raw product, like your manuscript, and punctuation, construction of the sentence, subject and verb agreement, spelling. Um, Sometimes we get in our own thoughts as writers, so the editor is there to channel or keep the writing focus in terms of the storyline.
Yeah.
So that's basically the role of the editor.
The editor has to have extreme, but you say no because every right that's something right and read sometimes and read it and I'll read it again. And for some reason somebody looks at it again, or somebody looks at it right after me and they find an error. So let me tell you something. The editor has to be like an eagle. The editor must be extremely sharp. Right? I can say that. So as I said, everybody hears the word editors, editor all the time. But some people, I can assure you, they don't know exactly what editor, especially being
Yeah.
editor here on track. You know, sometimes your mind might wander, but the editor, you know, assists in keeping you in track. That's another thing that is very important where editors are concerned as well.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. Again, on that note, thanks again to Margot Joint Calendar, the editor of these books, these wonderfully edited, brilliant pieces of work. So yeah, as I was saying, racism. Uh, the calendar is arguing that racism persisted undisturbed in a number of critical areas, such as the control of sugar plantations, other landed properties, commercial houses in Bridgetown, the earliest hotels in the tourist industry, the transport vehicles, the telephone, electricity, telegraph services, and in terms of public service, white Barbadians were the earliest teachers after emancipation. White Barbadians of the elite and middle class status established their own enclave, housing spaces outside of the plantations, and the famous suburbs such as Belleville, Strathclyde, Navy Gardens, Hastings, Worthing, Club Morgan. So let us start at the latter point of the status of white middle class Barbadians. Let us look at it in this day and age, in a modern sense, in a modern Barbados society and economy. What is the demographics of areas such as Club Morgan, Worthing, Hastings, Navy Gardens? Now, if you understand the location of in Barbados or where these districts are at, Worthing, these are on the south coast.
Of course. Yeah.
So this is essentially the Christchurch South constituency, um, which is held by which is the opposition leader of Barbados, right? If you look at the history of the demographic of that area, um, then the calendar argued that in the earlier times, the white elite and middle class dwelled in that area. Okay. So, if you fast forward to a modern era, the demographics are kind of the same, and in the sense, you now have more blacks, or some blacks migrated into these areas, and then you also have the wealthy Indian, Hindu, uh, you know, people who could afford living in these areas. Right? So it's not necessarily so much white dominated where blacks couldn't dwell. Black people are now comfortably living in these areas which were once dominated by the white wealthy elite. So it shows that there's been some progress as it relates to penetrating some demographics for blacks. So Navy Gardens, again, this comes down to Christchurch West along the coastal areas again. So you're seeing from the Oistins area, stretching along that entire area of Christchurch. Um, the wealth of Barbados lived there. Right? But with the emergence of new economic policies, Nigel Ramon, this was probably when we were kids in the 90s areas. This is when Prime Minister Ornako was in power. We saw the emergence of new entrepreneurs coming into Barbados, a new type of wealthy person, a new businessman, right? And this new businessman was able to migrate into Barbados and create opportunities for local Barbadians to have high income jobs, to have higher earnings, to become entrepreneurs. So with your increasing income, that gives you the power then to increase the social status, right? And that gives you the ability now to move into the same areas like Wording, Navy Gardens. So I know a lot about Navy Gardens because I went to school at Palm Marine, which is located right in Navy Gardens, and we had regular relationships with the neighbors around. We often walk up to Lanterns Mall. So we got a deep understanding of how the demographics in those areas are in a modern sense. When you come down into Strathclyde, this is the area if you guys don't know where Strathclyde is. This is Bank Hall behind the O levels.
Yeah.
There's a glass plate in that area. There were stories told really. Young black Barbadians cannot walk through Strathclyde, cannot walk through areas like Belleville, um, unless you could possibly be shot. And at one point in time, I did hear of a story being told of a Barbadian being shot walking through one of these areas. A black Barbadian being shot walking through one of these areas. So,
Well, sorry, Kimar, you seem to be you seem to be peeping, because I was just going to ask if there was any part of Barbados, well, especially areas you mentioned, where there was all whites, and they had any situation where you would see a level of violence against black and so forth. So you were peeping, and with you saying that just now, it just actually and I did hear the story of the young person who walked that particular avenue and was shot. So, it was good that you mentioned that. Unfortunate, but that's history. Maybe, yeah.
okay. Thanks for that interjection, Warren.
Yep.
Very, 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 very timely and fitting to the train of thought and where we're going. So yeah, we went from a history of young black Barbadians being shot in these areas to now you have attorneys living in these areas, members of parliament living in these areas, um, members of the Muslim Indian population living in these areas, dentists and average middle class Barbadians, professionals, of course, more higher income earners um, living in these areas. So where the white elite left off, a type of black, uh, you saw the emergence of like a black bourgeoisie taking over from the whites who would have left the area or sold up their investment, and blacks probably bought over the lands and moved in along with some members of the Indian population. So it shows that there was definitely change in the demographics given the districts that Brendo would have listed here because we only focused on what he has here. Right? in those areas, we saw a definite change in the demographics. But when you come further down to Bridgetown, the demographics of Bridgetown has changed as well. The ownership stores, the stores, sorry, the ownership has changed. So it went from the white Barbadian now to you have the Syrian, you have the Indian, Muslim, uh, so have a couple of whites, and so there's a demographic, a different demo, a more mixed demographic when it comes to ownership of stores in Bridgetown. What we're seeing now is another change coming, right? Because it went from partly a lot of Barbadian businesses being sold to Trinidad, right? It went from that now to you're seeing a lot of Barbadian businesses sold now on the international market. So we're seeing now the Nigerian entrepreneur, we're seeing the Ghanaian entrepreneur, right, coming in. So then there's a change in now at the yard, right? You're seeing the average American coming in with wealth. And we're not talking about old generational money. We're talking about YouTube money and TikTok money and social media money that young people are mega millionaires are coming in and buying up properties in these parts of the world who don't necessarily have that patriotic mindset, like how their parents, had it. They're more into profit and wealth and return. So I would end my point there and to say that the points that Randall raised, in my estimation, there has been a level of progress or forward in these areas, in these demographics, because of the opportunity for people to have increased incomes, higher incomes, that they're not able to transcend classes and own a property in an area such as Strathclyde or in Belleville or in Navy Gardens, or Heights or Terrace. Majority of our parents came from the village, you know, or the lane or the street. But no, the modern Barbadian can brag about living in these areas. So any thoughts on you guys?
Well, first off, I want to challenge any of the viewers to explain to me uh, uh, telegraphics look like. I know what the actual instrument looks like, and I know what it's all about. But I want to challenge the viewers where that is concerned. That's the first thing first, because I know Wendell he would have mentioned telegraph and telegraphics, etc. etc. And then secondly, yeah, you're spot on. You are spot on, uh, Kimar. Really spot on. But to know that in terms of Belleville, in terms of Strathclyde, place as well as you mentioned, a lot of Indians and so forth would have moved there. A lot of dentists, a lot of lawyers, and you mentioned lawyers, etc. So you are absolutely right. Gonna you to square. Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. And also, you mentioned why I remembered Worthing, Worthing. Uh, but have gone to a couple times, that was to party, enjoy a party, one of the case may be. And obviously, it was owned by, I believe Syrians at that point in time. So that case things, you see a lot of businesses and so forth. You see a lot of businesses would have moved, and older people obviously wouldn't obviously more than likely wouldn't invest in those type of businesses like new money, social influence, not new money, not even old money, but it's new money. And yes, they are, you know, to building businesses in Barbados. And then obviously their target or their key. is profit, 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 right? In terms of the background of Barbados and what we stand for, and being patriotic, as you mentioned, no, that's not going to be at the forefront of their minds or their thinking, not at all. So you are absolutely right. Especially those areas, especially those areas. That's Nigel.
Okay. In response to that, KEMAR, I would say it makes sense. That would be the progression, where those areas were mostly populated by the middle class or some high class whites, as they would have been seen as at the time the standard of what you're supposed to strive for and strive towards, and as more economic opportunities were open to the average Bajan, the intellectual, the scholar, that would have went to school. Now, their path to progression based off of the standard that they have been seeing would be also to move into those areas. To the point that you made about the new entrepreneurship, new money coming in, specifically the Nigerian, the Ghanaian, the African American. I think my sister has sent me a TikTok. There's an African American lady that owns a restaurant somewhere on that coast as well. So it is happening in real time, where Barbados is seen as a viable option to invest and bring a business. And to your point, Ramon, yeah, they're not here for patriotism. They're here to make money. So there's a lot of discussion that comes into play now, whether or not they would have the best interests of the island and the island's people to heart, but that would be yet to be seen. My question though would be, these middle class and upper class whites, did they move out of these areas that made space for the average scholar to come in, or was there some type of
Right.
legislation or anything put in place for that to happen?
Well, there was not the black. There wasn't the Black Power movement like Mugabe in Zimbabwe. Where there was legislation forcing the migration of the whites. But with the assumption of black political power in Barbados through the emergence of the Democratic Labour Party through Barrow, a lot of white wealthy Barbadians migrated away from the country because black people were now assuming power, right? So a lot of them left, moved out. A lot of them sold out the investments. A lot of them just abandoned the investments. And that led on to my next point, probably say right now, NIGEL, sorry. And ironically, is section 2. But what you guys were speaking, there was reading on in the book. Section 2 speaks about black political power in Barbados. And when the calendar argued that the acquisition of political power by members of the black community was a step in the right direction to address the imbalances with which they have been plagued following emancipation. The text made by the early leaders of Barbados to truly ameliorate the conditions of the black race were admirable. A sense of organization and purpose facilitated by a relatively stable social and political environment bode well for the enfranchisement of the black race. Whites who were unsure of their future in the island immigrated to Australia and other far-flung destinations. Others who anticipated chaos, disorder, and doom were forced to concede that black rule was not amicable to the best interests of Barbados, which is the same point that I made in different words. So it's still good to see that I was on the same train of thought as Brenda. It says the world economic order, which gives little consideration to the challenges of former colonies, has hampered the growth of many of these former colonies, Barbados being no exception. Consequently, the leaders of Barbados, particularly in the period of the 90s and after, have been more engaged in a balancing act which required great mental and social dexterity. Some have even found themselves joining the descendants of their masters and ancestors against black leadership. So, Premier of Barbados, Barrow, after defeating the Barbados Labour Party in 1961, immediately implemented his promise of ensuring that no student should be required to pay school fees for any of the government secondary schools. In addition, he quickly ensured that more opportunities were provided for secondary education by having 5 new schools built, which were the Springer Memorial School, the Ellerslie School, the St. George Secondary School, the Garrison School, which is now Braden City, and the St. Lucie School, which is now Darrell Jordan. Mindful of the fact that government cannot satisfy the demand for placement at secondary schools, Prime Minister Albar provided assistance to approve private secondary schools, and they were granted various subventions and salaries for a few of the teachers at every approved school were paid. Students who received the marks in the common entrance were accepted by the private government approved school of their parent or guardian's choice. They were awarded bursaries to assist with paying the relevant school fees, and in a few cases, the bursaries were adequate to cover the school fees. The success of students who attended those private schools bore testimony to the significance of this education policy for the black race. The schools impacted by this policy included Modern High School, Federal High, Cooperative High, Lynch's Secondary, Christchurch High, Industry High, Lynch's Secondary, Unique High, Wakefield High, and Metropolitan High. Mindful of the state of poverty, Barrow also ensured that the children at primary schools were provided with free school meals. At the tertiary level, the Barrow administration facilitated the establishment of the College of Arts and Sciences at UWA. And in 1937, the campus was relocated to Cave Hill. Um, Ordinary students were allowed to complete their O-level studies with a chance to pursue further career options in arts, sciences, agriculture, fine arts, and the Barbados Community College was established in 1968, later with a hospitality institute, later established. The SJPP was later established in 1969, and the Barbados Technical Institute was established. Ooh, right, sorry. Yeah. So basically, we were saying that at that time, with the emergence of black political power, you had to have economic policies that would strengthen that power, and that you had to educate people to be able to serve in positions of power. So the black populace now had control of the public service. They could give Barbadians jobs, so they needed to be educated in order to take these jobs. If you guys remember a little bit of your political history, when the idea of free education for the populace came up, the question was asked by a conservative. So when you educate the people, who are going to cut the canes? Like, who are going to cut the sugar canes? So a black conservative asked that question at the time. Right? Who's going to cut the sugar cane? So there you have it now. The free education policy implemented by El Barrow. Fast forward in the modern day things, you see that the common entrance exam was very important in establishing a middle class in Barbados. The Barbados Community College, O levels away no cost CXC, and the ability to go on to tertiary level education, which is UWI, that you could then take on managerial and chief executive officer jobs or whatever, which would definitely give you higher levels of income. That is what built the black bourgeois middle class in Barbados.
And
That
just
policy right
now,
there.
you open up that little gateway now, right? For me to just let me just interject a little bit. As time goes on, right? I know this might be a controversial statement, but I am seeing the emergence of classism in a serious way in Barbados. And I haven't, honestly, I personally haven't experienced a lot of racism personally. But in terms of classism, I'm seeing an emergence, a heavy emergence of classism in Barbados. And well, I mean, my panelists here, my colleagues here can comment on it. But that is what I am seeing emerging in a serious way. Classism.
Yeah, I think you're on point with that. I think it has been around for a while though, given that the population, the demographics of Barbados are majority black, minority white. You know, when you break down the economic structure of who exists, that is the only other way you can differentiate between you and another man. Because if to only let you see him, what is there to distinguish me and you? Know we talking about economics. Well, my car better than yours. I live in a bigger house than
Yeah,
you. I
yeah,
wear
yeah,
more brand than you.
yeah,
No, those things seek to separate. And even further, when we talk about schools,
yeah.
you know, I went to an older grammar school. I went to the St. Michael School. Now, you know, everyone was in the same class, but come lunchtime, you know what I mean? Some
Everybody
people
in
going
the
so,
everybody
some
in the
people going
circles.
so,
Yeah,
for
schools,
sure,
schools. And I think
for
I
sure.
made a point. I made a point on another show that I can remember. There are some employers in Barbados. You would have gone, when you would have gone to the school 16 years ago, and they are still concerned. So which school you went to in relation to hiring you? You know,
Mhm.
you left the school, you left the school system 16 years ago, 16, 17 years ago, depending obviously on your age. And they're still concerned about which school you went. When you've gotten degree after degree after degree. You've done what have you done? You you know, been sure you saved well, you have become a responsible adult. Right? And yet
Mhm.
school
No,
events.
you're not wrong. You're not wrong. You know, I think that speaks a lot to the loyalism. It
Mhm.
speaks to people like to know to have something in common with you.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, and it should not that should not be, but that is the reality. You know, it should be based off your content of your character, what you putting forward. That
yeah,
is what they should judge you off of. But we, unfortunately, and in reality, you know, your background, where you grew up, what your
yeah,
father do, where you went to school, how you just dress, how you
yeah.
speak, all of these things people may not speak on, but they're paying
Mhm.
attention to, you know, using that in the basis of whether or not they will offer you something or work with you.
Because it reminded me of a skit, right? On social, I saw on social media. So it was this employer, and he was there, obviously, sitting down, talking to a potential candidate for a job. So he asked some questions and so forth about this particular job, and the person answered them correctly. He was very pleasant. He had great business etiquette, everything, right? And then one of the questions he asked, so what school you went to, like, man? Yeah. And that was the end of the
What
interview.
my friend
All
did.
right, no problem. Yeah. Another guy came in now, and the first question the interview, so what school you went to? Hired. You understand? Hired.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that skit obviously it was obviously supposed to be the basis for a joke, but is reality is reality, Nigel, is reality. And
Hey,
until we got try to see if we can move away from that, obviously her based on merit. But again, as KEMAR mentioned, as the black start to obviously gain political power, we would have found a way then still to segregate. We always seem to find a way to segregate, you know,
for sure,
which is
for
which is very
sure.
unfortunate, right?
For
It's very
sure.
but
It's interesting though.
uh,
Back to the point that they said that when the blacks in Barbados came to power, that majority of the middle class and upper class whites left. So I guess that there's a saying that goes, "It's all fun and games till the rabbit got the gun." So I figured they saw themselves losing power and saying, "Well, you know what? Well, we let these people do what they gotta do. Our place here and time here has come and gone." You know, which begs the question: what was their interest? Were they interested in really seeing the development of the country and its patrons, or was it just self-interest? I think that's
Well,
self-explanatory, but I don't know. What do you think,
well,
Ramon?
Um, I think is fear. Fear in that you exploit a people for so long. Um, the fear of those people doing what you did to them because you direct. So power is power, right? So if black assume a power, then I guess those whites assume they will have to live under the rule of black people. And with black people having that power now, they will fear for their lives because blacks now have the power to crush them economically. Right? And after years and years of exploitation, then that fear will definitely exist. Now, in reading from the book, I had a couple of thoughts. And I like how Ramon went along that line about where he went to school and stuff like that because we put it in people's head that where we went to school don't matter. Or we try to tell people that where we went to school don't matter. But in almost every instance in Barbados, when you go knocking on certain doors, as Ramon rightfully said, the question is asked, where did you go to school? And I can assure you, if you see the right school, you'll be heard forthwith, right? Now, children coming up, class 1, class 2, class 3, are prepared for the common entrance exam. You do mathematics, you do English at common entrance, and a composition. And you're then graded on those three areas, and then you're then assigned to a school based off your grade, based off your performance.
One
No,
day. Wait, one day. Yeah, for that one day.
no, you have a grade system. In order to go to Harrison College, you have to get over a specific percentage in grades. In order to go to Queen's College, you have to get the second most percentage. And then between St. Michael's and Commonwealth and Lodge and Foundation, you battle it out. So there is a system, there's a competition system to get into different schools in Barbados, right? The average parent usually tries to grill in the child's head, I would love for you to pass for Parsons College or Commonwealth or St. Michael's because there's a certain level of prestige associated with attending a specific school. And that's all over the world. A Harvard graduate is more well received than a graduate from Cornwall, or a Yale graduate is more received, you know, than a student from University of Boston.
Ivy League
So
schools. Hmm.
yeah, so I made that point to say that we all get the same CSCs, yes, right? But the success of the student or the average student almost is dependent in Barbados on the school that you went to school at, right? Now, there are persons who went to schools in Barbados. Dude, I don't want to rate school, but this school thing is not an argument for me, but you will see a mid-tier school who got the CXDs, got the degrees, became educated, professionals did. But they are in a minority. They are in a minority. So I could put a name on a school. How many students are past students from St. George Secondary or even Bradley Adams Secondary, right? Have degrees and are doctors, lawyers, dentists, as compared to students who went to Harrison College or Queen's College or St. Michael's, right? How many sanitation workers went to Harrison College or Queen's College as compared, right? As compared to St. George or St. Leonard's, or we would say one of the more mid-tier schools, right? So all schools are definitely not equal in my estimation, right? If not, we would have governors of the central bank from St. George Secondary School, right? We will have prime ministers from, any school. But we don't. So my estimation, right, is the 11 plus, which at the time was set up to allow equal access to all schools. If you have the intelligence, you set the exam, you get the marks, you're going, right? I am conflicted, fellas. I am conflicted. And I'm going to say that the 11 plus is the reason that I am here, you're here, and Nigel is here, right? So I'm conflicted now that if you remove this 11 plus, what system are you going to use, right? That you're going to use to allow the children of Barbados to filter into schools,
All right.
to,
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
to filter into to very specific school. Because I don't want a situation, right? I don't want a situation where because I live, let us say, I'm intelligent enough to go to one of these so-called older grammar schools, right? But because I live in close proximity to, a school, I'm just assigned there. I'm just assigned there because it's close by to me, or there's no a fair screening process, right? I'm not saying that the 11 plus is the most or the best thing, but what I'm saying is you can see the benefits of having an 11 plus in place and how it could allow you as an intelligent person the opportunity to be, you know, to do something later. So, in your guys' estimation, um, what can we do with this schools issue? What can we do with this 11 plus issue? What do you guys think about this? And where can we go from here?
All right. So my one piece. No, I no. Your point was very valid, KEMAR, right? To be very honest with you, right? What it would say is that if you're looking to get rid of well, eradicate the 11 plus, right? The only other system I think that would be fair, if you're looking to go and think about what the line you're going down, is continued assessment. That is one thing you could look at, because at the end of the day, it's one day that the child goes into this particular room. Anything can happen that day. The child have got in nerves, as the older people will say. But we know it as anxiety. We know it. The child can be hungry and on that particular day. And just thinking about food, and they go in there and they do things. Because I could give an example now, right? Me personally, my they usually have little mock exams before the actual 11 plus. I don't know if they still do it now. I would have been scoring extremely high in those particular exams on the day of the 11 plus. I don't know if I was hungry that day and thinking about KFC or Chefet, but I didn't do as well as I would have done throughout my whole primary school life. So that is something we can probably look at. Continued assessment. If we're going to go the route, there's schools that are better than others. Some schools are better than other schools. If you're going to go that, the only other thing, if you're not going to go that route, okay, is try to create a more balanced school life in every single aspect, or every single aspect of that particular school. Balance it out as much as way, and all the schools try to get the best teachers and mix them at every school. The same care, the same level of attention, at every school. If you're looking if you're going to say it, you know what, we're looking to do something different, where the 11 plus is concerned. We're looking at design or eradicate 11 plus, right? If we're looking at moving a different direction and say, all schools are equal. Then get the best teachers and try to spread them as much as possible. The teachers that will be more attentive to the students, spread it across all the schools as best as you can. That's my only two options, to be honest.
Okay.
And in summation, if we're looking to keep the 11 plus, right? If we're looking to keep the 11 plus, well, try to spread the best teachers, obviously, across the schools as best as you can. If we're looking at the other option, continued assessment, right? That's my 2 piece.
Okay, respect. Competition drives innovation. I don't see anything wrong with the competitive nature of the school system as is. In my estimation, the 11 plus is where I am, as you said, KEMAR, and it gives a fair shot, I would say, because it's the same test, same thing as CSC. What I think needs to happen is a more honest and transparent presentation and putting forward of what it is that distinguishes these older grammar schools from these quote unquote mid-tier schools. And if we could have a proper assessment, then replicate that at all schools, make that be the standard of schools in Barbados in general. No, you will have true competition because, as you said, you're finding heads of the banks, you're finding heads of these more economically progressive businesses and jobs, people from specific schools sit in these positions. I don't think nothing should change about the 11 plus. Only make it better. But in terms of the structure as it is, I would say it from my purview, it has been working. Now, Ramon, you make a good point. The continued assessment at first glance, that sounds like a really, really good idea. Now, I would say as someone that comes from a family that is a little bit more stable, would have an edge against somebody in a continued assessment where he's able to have you get breakfast every morning. Mommy or daddy might drop you school. He got access to lessons, after school work. He may have a community around him that encourages education. So for that type of candidate, continued assessment is perfect. Whereas another candidate, no, that don't have these extra supplements to help him along his journey, he may suffer in a continued assessment. So I like the idea, but I think that there got to be a little bit more digging into what that would look like and a realization of the populaces that we're dealing with in the island. So for my last piece, I don't think nothing should change with the 11 plus. What should happen is a true and transparent assessment of these schools that seem to produce better and more competent citizens, and then replicate that across the board.
So then the other question remains now, how about people who, in terms of academia, they are not that interested. Should we have some more schools in a serious, dealing with full on trade, people who are interested in trade? That could be an option as well too. That could be an option.
I agree. So my go ahead, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, you still need some even if you're doing trade, some level of business management, some level of business management background. If you're still doing trade, if you decide to be a trade, but to be heavy on the trade, to be heavy on the creatives. You understand? Schools designed for people who are creative. Yes, you will get a little math, you get a little English, etc. But be heavy on the people with the trade who are creative, who carpenters, masons. Be heavy on that, and obviously later because we're just the format of the 11 plus math, English, composition, as KEMAR rightly said on that particular day, right? That is extremely important. Still, even the guys who are interested in the trade, who are creatives, yes, math important. They got the money, right? But be heavy, but you gotta be heavy on obviously the other areas, carpentry, people who want to be masons, people who are photographers, be heavy on that, that would be a little bit more balanced if we're going to obviously keep the 11 plus system. Right?
Agreed. So no, you said your continued assessment now would be the practitioners who is putting that forward, the assessment would be able now to tutor or tailor.
Yeah.
When you watching this student throughout class 4, class 1 throughout, or well, you seem more inclined to these things,
Yeah.
or maybe there should be a secondary school that is tailored to technical stuff, like how we have SJ, Samuel Jackman, Prescott, you know what I mean? So there are options, but who pulling those triggers? But
Because
this is a good discussion.
it's okay to say Samuel Jackman Polytechnic, right? But that is after the child would have then gone through 4 years of being lost and not having a clue what cheese on brothers. I try to learn this math and English thing. Block time. And this is an excuse to, I'm not here on the blocks either. I'm just saying that, they become wayward after that 4 years. And math, English, cheese on bread. I love, hairdressing. I love doing nails. I love doing eyelashes. Whether the eyelashes be dramatic or whatever they call them. But I love.
Ramon, I need to interject here, right? For two reasons.
Yeah.
Watson Juke is here. And the next reason is that we love to talk so well and so civilian nice, when it comes to promoting the skills, you want your dressers and carpenters and masons and tilers and plumbers, you want all of these people. But then when it comes to representation, and aspiring to be more than that, society then looks down on them. How could a hairdresser run a country? How could a mechanic, how could a fisherman run a country? How could a man without a degree run a country? Right? We didn't turn around and say that. So we need to root out all discrimination. Right? I have not quite found the word yet to describe discrimination against people who discriminate against the uneducated. I have not found a word for that as yet. But I don't want to say uneducated. I would say non-degree and non-traditional risk takers. I support the non-degree, non-traditional risk takers. Anytime, any day, anyhow. Because these are the people we need to drive society forward. The innovators, the thinkers, the people who think laterally and different. We can't have a system of all that are drivers. You can't have a system of all lawyers. You can't have a system of all doctors. And that's why Barbados is so imbalanced today. And that we have a whole set of people coming out of KFL, thousands and thousands of people coming out of KFL, can't find work, can't find jobs. People that have master's degrees working at the gas station pump, right? And these things are realities in Barbados. So my thing is, I will not accept any more public criticism from anybody when people who are skilled, right? Even in STEM skills, people who are computer literate, who don't want to go down the academic road, I will not take any criticism. from people who seek to pull down persons who want to aspire to be more from a skilled base. They say that they can't run a country or they can't run a company or that they can't do that. But without further ado, let us welcome the man himself, the man all the way from Tobago, Mr. Watson Juke. We're going to bring Mr. Juke in the program right about now. So welcome to Alternate Views, Mr. Juke. How are you doing, sir?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. And to my brothers, thank you for sharing this space with me tonight. And the viewers, I'm happy to be in your company. I'm great, my brother.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Juke. Fellas, we have Sheepdog on all the way from Ireland. So thank you very much for coming on, sir. Thank you, Mr. Juke. You had some early loyal supporters coming on earlier who were asking for you, wanted to know where's Mr. Juke. I thought you said we had on Mr. Juke first. You know, they were getting angry in the comments. So you definitely have some fans over here
Yes.
in Barbados. But I'm going to hand over to Nigel to do an introduction of you. So for those persons who don't know Mr. Juke, we're going to ask Nigel to, to do that for
Yeah.
us. So over to you.
Okay. Mr. Watson Duke is a prominent Tobagoan politician and trade unionist known for his significant contributions to Tobago's political landscape and labor movements. Duke was born in Tobago and attended Scarborough Secondary School. He pursued higher education at the University of the West Indies, earning a bachelor's degree in industrial relations. After graduation, Duke began his career as a teacher before transitioning into trade unionism. He served as a president of Tobago branch of the Public Service Association from 2001 to 2015, advocating for workers' rights and better working conditions. His political career in 2013, Duke founded Tobago Organization of the People, a progressive political party promoting greater autonomy for Tobago. In 2015, he established the Progressive Democratic Patriots, focusing on Tobago's self-governance and regional issues under his leadership. The PDP became a significant political force in Tobago. Watson Duke was elected to the THA, Tobago House of Assembly, in 2017, representing the Roxborough Argyll electoral district. He was re-elected in subsequent elections and served as the Deputy Chief Secretary from December 2021 until his resignation in September 2020. Mr. Duke, you have the floor.
Well, again, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be with my colleagues from Barbados. And it's not very often I get to join the company of such eminent colleagues. And so I'm just awestruck tonight, waiting to delve right into the matter. You ask the questions, I provide the answers. You show the obscurity, and I provide the clarity. This is what tonight is about.
Okay. Over to you, KEMAR.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that, fellas. We're going to ask you, sir, some questions tonight. Over in Barbados, there's a heated discussion going on about Barbados, Trinidad, our relationships. We have some issues going on with the mainland Trinidad right now. Let me give you a quick roundup. We had some more fishing agreements signed between Trinidad, Tobago, and Barbados. Very recently, we had an agreement, we noticed, sorry, an agreement was signed between Trinidad and Tobago and the USA, which then allows the US to use Trinidad as an air base in case there's any political instability in Venezuela. There have been more oil deals signed between Barbados and Trinidad, the drilling of hydrocarbons between the borders of Trinidad and Tobago, even more so Tobago. So some sovereign deals were negotiated on Tobago's behalf by
Yeah,
mainland Trinidad. Um, and then lastly, we noticed that there has been a lot of high level meetings between Barbados, Trinidad, and the United States at large. And you are trying to have further collaboration or whatever you want to call it between Trinidad, Tobago, and Barbados. So your pressing issue is that Tobago wants, you told me last time, self-determination
that's right.
from Trinidad. So what is this topic all about? Autonomy for Tobago. I know, could you inform the alternate viewers exactly what happened in the Parliament this week?
All right. Thank you again, and good night, everyone. Good evening, rather, everyone. In Trinidad Parliament, or in National Parliament, which is in Trinidad, it is composed of 39 seats in Trinidad, and 2 seats are from Tobago. The government of the day would have brought to Parliament 2 bills. One is a constitutional amendment bill, and the other one was a Tobago self-government bill. The constitutional amendment bill prepared the way for the Tobago self-government bill to have a life of its own and to give Tobago House of Assembly lawmaking powers, where those powers are not subjected to the cabinet's approval as it is now, but rather the approval of the president. Um, the lawmaking powers are somewhat restrictive. They also have executive powers, which is somewhat restricted again. And they will have the ability to have things like a public service in Tobago. It is really what you call devolved powers, more devolved powers. That is what the Tobago self-government bill is, and that's what the constitutional amendment was about, creating that environment. However, it should be noted, anywhere in the world, once something goes into the constitution, it is almost permanent. Constitutions are seldom revisited except for critical reasons. And once the Tobago Self Government Bill became a feature of the Constitution, then we would be doomed for the next 100 years. The bill of itself was not a bill that had gotten sufficient circulation in Tobago, as most people in Tobago were unaware of what the bill offers. For years, historically, those who represent Tobago in the parliament in Trinidad have been represented one view of our political status alone, and that view is Tobago must be given autonomy. Autonomy is a word that speaks to the devolution of powers, powers that are devolved from a high authority to a low authority. We are saying in Tobago, my political organization and myself, we are saying that Tobagonians must choose. Tobagonians must not be told that we will give you more rights. Tobagonians, as people around the world, we were born with that inalienable right to determine for ourselves and by ourselves our own political status. I will get back to that in a while again. And to freely pursue our economic, social, and cultural development. Whenever the term political status is used, it can be likened to whether your marital status is single, married, divorced. That is a status. All right. So political status, there are three political status. Tobago can choose to be independent. Tobago can choose a form of autonomy, and there are many different forms of autonomy. What we have right now is autonomy. What the states in the USA have is autonomy. Good. Autonomy means more rights within a larger organization, right? And or we can be have an association. That is what the Eastern Caribbean states have with the EC dollar, an association. That's what the European nations have with the European Parliament. They have They make laws that govern all of them, but they have to agree. And they share a dollar. They share security. That's what they have. So they form an association. But each country is independent. And so it may be a lot to take in at one bite. So let me just say we are seeking the right to determine for ourselves. And why? I'll tell you why. The United Nations Charter and there are many international laws that supports self-determination. Self-determination is a cardinal principle rooted in international law. It is something that is for which all colonial nations or colonial islands, in this case, must be given. Somewhere in the writings of historians and legal minds, it is said and well documented that any nation that has been subjected to a colonial power, they must have the right to self-determine. In other words, they among themselves must determine that they want this political status to be independent or to have autonomy or to have an association. And they must freely of themselves pursue their own economic, social, and cultural development. It brings to mind what today is called neocolonialism, which is basically a modern day form of colonizing people by making them totally dependent upon you and you cannot pull away. Almost all of the Caribbean countries are totally dependent on former slave masters. All right, one way or the other. If they don't buy from you, you have nowhere to sell. I mean, I could go on and on extending this point of view, but the bill did not speak of Tobago's independence. The bill did not speak of Tobago forming an association. The bill did not give Tobago the freedom. The bill simply assumed that Tobagonians wanted autonomy. And that's a failed view. That's the view of many politicians going far back as from the time the movement became a discussion in 1977 with A.N.R. Robinson. When he went to the parliament, he went to their parliament seeking more rights. I am saying that Tobago does not want more rights. Tobago wants all of its rights, ALL, all of our rights. And Tobago must decide by itself with no external pressures, not a single person coming from Trinidad to supervise this. We must decide fairly and once and for all what we want as a political status, which is we can have our own flag, our own national anthem, and we can have our own representative at the United Nations. We can borrow freely on the world market and trade freely without being monitored or interfered with in any kind of way by a bigger party. That's what one of the views we have to concentrate upon, our independence. The next view Tobago need to vote upon is whether or not we want to have an association. We can decide that we want to form an association with the Eastern Caribbean states, and we want to move away from the TT and have the EC dollar. We could decide that we want to stay with Trinidad and have an association, but that's just what it is, an association. It means, therefore, that in the Parliament of Trinidad, if we have an association and they are voting down there and Tobago does not vote with the bill, it is not a Trinidad and Tobago bill, but rather a Trinidad bill. When you have an association, one party cannot dominate the other. They are simply independent and they may share its own the borders, etc. So I want to respond to this question. I see because they came in here. Tobago wants sovereignty from Trinidad. No, Tobago wants the right to choose and to have a discussion. That discussion must take place. I cannot speak for Tobagonians, but every single political status must be presented forcefully, clearly, with the merits and the demerits. They must know the merits of being independent and the demerits of being independent. They must know the merits of having an interdependent relationship with Trinidad or autonomy with Trinidad. And they must also know the drawbacks or the demerits. They must know the merits of having an association with Trinidad, which is basically a superficial relationship with Trinidad. Yeah. And they must know the drawbacks or demerits of that. Tobago must decide. We have never decided. We are the only island in the Caribbean that has never decided. And let me go back a bit. In 1887, Queen Victoria maliciously, vindictively joined Trinidad and Tobago together. She referred to them as the colonies. And so she joined the colony of Tobago with the colony of Trinidad, forming Trinidad and Tobago as a state. Historically, Tobago is different from Trinidad, as different as the North Pole is from the South Pole, as different as from light from day. We are completely different. Over time, there are over 375,000 Tobagonians living in Trinidad, and so the population of Tobago is rather small. Currently, there are 40,000 persons living on the island of Tobago. The rest are elsewhere. Not the names are on the records, but they're not here on the island per se. So it's a very small island, but we have persons all over the world finding living because there's nothing happening in Tobago. Tobago does not have an economy. They say it's tourism, but last year we have 100 boats. This says 44. Ask yourself why. It's 44. They say our economic thrust is in the area of tourism. But again, we're the only island in the Caribbean that doesn't have a cruise ship complex. We're the only island in the Caribbean that has one pier or one boating station or one jetty. So if, for example, a cargo boat is using that jetty, the cruise ship has to wait outside. And if the cruise ship is inside, the cargo boat has to wait outside. So it's madness. It is just people are taking Tobagonians for granted. Tobagonians were one of the first islands in the Caribbean among the first islands in the Caribbean that had what is called the old representative system by the British. It meant that since 1769, Tobago have had its Tobago House of Assembly. Though it was run by the plantocracy, the white man who was 25 years and older and had land, etc., and we weren't allowed to vote, it was nevertheless a system, right? That they made laws for themselves and they govern. And even though when we share a governor with St. Vincent and Guyana and these people, Tobago still had its own constitution, separate and apart from St. Vincent, Grenada, etc. So they were never one, but they shared a governor for administrative purposes. Tobago is now ready to explore on its own adulthood, political adulthood, economic adulthood, social adulthood, and cultural adulthood. We do not want to be told by Trinidad what to do, where to sit, where to be, and where to lie down and sleep. They cannot tell us that. Let them know their place. I have come to age now. I'm a man, and I'm running the show. Tobago demand its pound of flesh. So I'm opening the floor now for questions, etc.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Watson. That was a very good, upfront and truthful analysis of what's happening on the ground. We live there in Tobago. So I want to open to the hosts and guests, Ramon. Ramon, as co-host, we're going to ask you to make an initial comment. Anything that interests you in what was said by Mr. Ju.
Yeah, definitely. So would you think in terms of uh, if there's some progression where autonomy is concerned, it would interest people who have gone outside of Tobago to come back home. You think that would be a situation where they'd be more interested to come back home and share with the growth and the progression where the autonomy is concerned? That's the question.
Well, first of all, for the purposes of the conversation, I want us to refer to it as self-determination. Autonomy, again, refers to a choice, and Tobago has not made that choice. That choice can only be made by all of Tobagonians voting, right? For that. Tobagonians have never voted anything. What we have is some masterminds who are good at skullduggery, who are good at trickery, smoke and mirrors. They go into a room, they call their friends, their neighbors, their uncle, their aunts, looking like 20 people, give them juice and cakes, and say, this is what we're going to do. And they bring people who are wearing academic qualifications on their sleeve, and they talk down to the crowd, and they say, well, the government is offering this, what you all want. At the end of the day, they write what they want, and they take it back in a book, and they say, this is what Tobago wants. We do not want that. There must be a full campaign on all three status, or status, as they call it, right? Which is independence, autonomy, or association. and they must hear the benefits and the drawbacks of each. And Tobago must then go to the polls on a particular day and vote for what they want. That's how participatory democracy takes place in its truest form. So let's correct the narrative and let's speak of uh, self-determination, which is a broader and a legal thing. Autonomy is never a legal issue, but self-determination is a legal issue. Barbados exercise theirs, Trinidad and Tobago exercise theirs. And maybe I should just explain it to you because you don't know. Trinidad and Tobago is a country, but Tobago is a ward of that country. You with me? Digest it a little bit. Trinidad and Tobago became a country in 1887 by a malicious and vindictive act of Queen Victoria. And later on, in 1898, she placed a curse upon Tobago, a British curse upon Tobago, and made Tobago a ward of itself, a ward of Trinidad and Tobago. So we're the only island in Trinidad and Tobago, the entire Caribbean, that is a ward of itself. We're the only island in the world that is a ward of itself. There's not another island in the world that is a ward of itself. So it's crazy. It's like your little finger having a little finger. It's something abnormal, it's an abnormality, and it needs to be corrected. And I'm demanding that this time we correct that. So,
Okay.
back again, gentlemen.
All right. You said self-determination is a cardinal principle of the UN. Now, if that is granted, I would like to know from you, Mr. Duke, what is your ideal vision for Tobago? When we look at Tobago on an international global market, what would you like people to say? What would you like people to think? What would they be offered in your ideal vision of Tobago?
Very wise question. Tobago, by virtue of its current population and its resources, natural resources within the marine space, Tobago is a very rich country. Just off Charlottesville, we have one of the largest, in fact, the largest gas find in Trinidad and Tobago and the largest in the entire Caribbean. We're talking about 3.9 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Right? That is billions of US dollars. Any way you check it out. We have several other gas finds right around the periphery of Tobago, in Tobago waters, if we had to use the United Nations laws of the seas. Right? We would be naturally rich people with good leadership. But for Tobago to develop, Tobago has to develop beyond what is called Caribbean development. You see, when the slave masters left, they left persons in charge. And today, those slave masters are still in charge in the persons of the leaders we see. They're all children of the slave masters, right? And I mean that politically speaking, not as a curse, but politically speaking, they're like children of the slave masters in the sense that the slave masters never wanted the Caribbean to really develop. They just wanted the Caribbean to be a source of fodder for them. It's a playground for them where they exploit, they make money, and they represent the bigger place overboard well. I'm saying that Tobago must become like Monaco, the most expensive piece of real estate. We have 116 square miles, but by no means are we small. We have the oldest rainforest in the Western Hemisphere. We have over 20 something different beaches. You're talking about white sand, pink sand, gray sand, black sand. We have it all here, right? And unlike many Caribbean countries who only have beaches but no rivers, there are several rivers and over 19 waterfalls we have. Not large, deep rivers, but rivers that are good enough. And we have, again, a piece of rock, right, known as blue limestone. We call it blue limestone generally, right? It is the hardest rock known for road paving in the entire world. It can only be found in 3 places: Nova Scotia, which is in Canada, Dominican Republic, which is next to Haiti, and Tobago. And that can be found throughout Tobago, right? Tobago is a unique place, a very unique place. Right outside of Tobago, maybe about right outside Englishman Bay. That's one of the bay towards the Caribbean Sea. There is an island buried there. It's as big as Tobago, 300 feet under the ground. That could be the sunken, what you call it again? If we call it the sunken, I think you call it. Just slip me there, right? It's sunken. Can't remember the name, right? but that could be what people are looking for, and so it's rich in history. It is the only Caribbean island. Let me go further. It's the only Caribbean island that has had 5 European nations fight for it. 5. May I ask you, if you know your history, how many persons fought for Barbados? We just want to compare notes a bit. How many European nations fought for Barbados? 2, 3? How many? You're not sure?
Less than 5 for sure.
Yeah. In most Caribbean countries, it is 2 or 3 European nations fought over them. We have had 5. The British, the French, the Dutch, the Hollanders, and the Spanish fought for Tobago. The Americans were making their way to fight, but they never land down. Tobago changed hands 33 times. 33 times. The closest Caribbean island, you know how much times they change hands? 15 times. 15, 5 times. So why, don't ask me, but ask the European nations, why were they fighting for Tobago? Why the British were so interested? Why the French was interested? Why the Dutch was interested? Why the Hollanders were interested? Huh? Why so many people were interested in Tobago? White had to change hands 33 times, and that's recorded. That's me saying that. Why change hands so much times? And so at the end of the day, Tobago has something that we are not aware of. Ever so often, people are digging and they still find treasures, you know. They find treasures here of gold in Tobago, you know. Have you ever found it in Barbados? No, I'm not saying. I mean, for those of my feed here, we're in Barbados, right? So people will be digging up the place and they find treasures. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know if anybody ever found Sam Large treasure in Barbados.
Yeah.
That's the only treasure we had.
We have lots of treasures here, you know, in Tobago, you know. Ever so often, just recently, some canoes washed into Tobago here. We believe it came from South America, perhaps, you know. Canoes washed in the shore about a year or 2 ago. So Tobago is a unique place. We are the southernmost island in the Caribbean. Trinidad is really what you will call a South American country. It was ruled by Spanish for more years than the English. Yeah. For almost 250 years, it was ruled by Spanish, and then the English took it over. Trinidad never changed hands among 5 European nations. So we are different people altogether. Different people. Yeah. And so Tobago must be given that universal right, that international right to determine for itself what it wants as its political status without Trinidad influencing it. And there's no place called Trinidad legally. That ended in 1887. Let me just correct that for you all. There's no place called Trinidad legally speaking. All right. There's a place called Trinidad and Tobago. So when you spoke of Trinidad and Tobago's meeting with your prime minister to discuss fishing treaties, etc., that was Trinidad posing as Trinidad and Tobago. But Tobago had no role to play in that because Tobago is a ward. Tobago has to go along, has to jump and follow suit. That ends now. We must decide for ourselves in Tobago. And we demand that.
Okay, so the question I'm gonna ask, right? In terms of, I know you can't speak for everyone, all the people of Tobago, right? But I know you have your ears to the ground in Tobago.
Yeah.
Is there a sense that you're ready to move in that direction from the people of Tobago?
We should have been there already. You know. That's when we took over, when we won the election in 2021. The people vote convincingly for that, and that should have been the first agenda. But you know, people have different ways of seeing things. And my colleague, Mr. Augustine, who is now the chief secretary in Tobago, I place trust and confidence in him to lead the Tobago team, while I would have gone to Trinidad and further develop on the arguments down there. So we'd have had a legislative representation in the national parliament, but he had different ideas of himself. He went on a frolic on his own and got shined eye and bewildered when he saw the bright lights and blue lights, etc. You know, so he lost his way, and so now we are set back. But had I been there, We there already, man. We there already. That's what I'm fighting for now. That's what Tobago is holding on to now. That's the dream we after. Once I land there, that's it. That's it. We are going to do it.
You mentioned rich in resources and so forth. So based on that, you think that you'll be able to will be able to be self-sufficient, be not only just a ward, but be a country on its own and to stand alone, be independent. You think that's a direction that you would like to go?
Well, it sounds very nice, yeah. It sounds very nice. I mean, I don't know who wants to walk and have a string attached to them and say, all right, I've walked long enough for the day, come back home, don't go further than that. You know, everyone wants to follow their dreams and see what the dreams turn out to be. Every man wants to pursue the rainbow, looking for the pot of gold and see if there's really a goal at that end of the day. I think Tobago will really want to experience what it is to pursue their own economic development, their own social development, and their own cultural development. Our culture is somewhat stifled. You know, we speak a lot like the Africans, right? Because that's our dialect. Our dialect is broken English. And so when you listen to Africans speak and hear Tobagonians speak, they rarely use a lot of the same words, the way they speak the English, you know? So we have a broken form of English, and we cherish that. I never try to speak the Queen English at all. I say, if they don't understand me, let them find an interpreter. So I don't get time with the subject and verb and is and are and we and time with that nonsense. That's slavery schooling. You know, if you have to talk properly, you have to present yourself as a man who is worth something, and people are going to value you at that. And that's how we want to educate our children in Tobago. They must present themselves as someone who's worth something. Yeah, that must come from inside.
So
You touched
you
on
okay, go
education
ahead.
just now. You touched on education just now. I'm curious, are people in Trinidad and Tobago, are they educated on the same basis?
Yeah, the one education for all, and it's a watered down version of education, kind of a colonial education. So we are forced to learn about Sir Francis Drake, Sir Walter Raleigh, you know, these people, these old thieves that they have us learning about. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Christopher Columbus, these rapists and these kind of stuff they're teaching us about here. And we have to
Mhm.
glorify these people. But what about our forefathers? What about our forefathers? You know what I mean? Who are telling us about our forefathers that came here, that developed this place, that built this place? Didn't they do anything good? No one is saying anything about the Black history. No one is saying anything about our foreparents. So we are lost. And let me tell you this, Tobago is one of those places after Haiti that have had a successful revolution. And yes, Barbados did play a part. Let me tell you this. On the 1st of May, 1876, a riot broke out in Tobago, in my village. My foreparents took part in that riot, called the Belmana riots, where they overpower a courthouse, burn it down, beat a policeman in 1 inch of death, and they took charge of the entire island called, or the country then called Tobago, because Tobago was independent, its own constitution, etc. They took part of the country for 5 days. When they took part of the country, when they took control of the country, sorry, for 5 days. When they took control of the country, a little boat was going from Tobago to Grenada. They told the boat to go to Barbados, where the naval fleet was. If you know your history, the naval fleet, the British naval fleet used to be stationed at Barbados. In the event something break out, they will come, you know, etc. And from Grenada, they went to Barbados and sounded the alarm. The ship came with the naval fleet, and man, they suppressed that thing radically right down after 5 days. And 3 months after that, Queen Victoria removed the executive powers from the Tobago House of Assembly. 3 months after that. So it happened in May, in June, sorry, May, right? So June, July, August. In August 1876, the executive powers, the decision-making powers, was removed from the Tobago House of Assembly. We then became Crown Colony rule. And in 1887, she said, look, I'm joining you with Trinidad and Tobago to form one country. After the country was formed, she then went in 1898 and placed a curse upon Tobago, excised Tobago out from the country while it remained inside there, and say it is a ward of the country. You can understand that madness? I can't even wrap my head around it as yet. It's like taking the baby out of a woman while she's still alive, and the baby is still out and inside at the same time. How could we be the country yet we are a ward of ourselves?
I have two questions. The more you speak, the more I am seeing the influence the British had in Tobago,
Very,
and
very.
I'm seeing the influence that the British had in Barbados,
Yeah.
right? I saw somebody put a comment earlier that Barbados and Tobago had some type of serious connection
Yeah.
um, previously. I remember former Prime Minister Al Barrow being very fond of Tobago as well. So, what benefit or how much does Tobago as a country give to Trinidad that they would not want to let go Tobago's contribution? And given the close proximity of Barbados and Tobago, um, do you think there was some type of trade relationship, some type of either air or sea linkage that the British Empire exploited between Tobago and Barbados?
Well, I really can't say really, you know what I mean? What I know for sure is that there was some linkages between Tobago and places like Grenada, places like St. Vincent, St. Lucia. Those islands we all shared. I govern on my research. Barbados was always a place where, from my understanding of it, where the British had a bigger base kind of way. They was out of it, you know what I mean? So, like I said, they had the naval fleet there. In the event there was any trouble in the area, they would come from Barbados to the rescue. And they did come to the rescue on that day in 1876, May. But in the future, of course, I see Barbados as a very pivotal player with Tobago, and that's why we need to be independent. We need to decide what we want to do. You know what I mean? We can't have Trinidad tell us what to do. We had, let me give you a bit of history, more history. Trinidad was a crown colony until it became independent in 1962, right? Tobago only became crown colony in 1876 after the riot, after the Belmana riot, when we seized control of the island, and those administrators in House of Assembly, they couldn't control it. And the Queen said, because you can't control it, I am not going to take charge. I'm taking away the executive powers from you, right? So that's what happened. But all things being equal, we are not in a position to be told what to do from Trinidad anymore. We are older than Trinidad. Our history is more diverse than Trinidad. And we had a bicameral system. Even in 1769, when the House of Assembly was formed, Tobago had a bicameral system, a lower house and a upper house. Trinidad had a unicameral house. Up until 1961, around, they had a unicameral house. Yeah? So Trinidad is a new government, is a new type of country, right? But they take on the name Trinidad and Tobago, and they wait with pride. They are pillaging all our resources and says Trinidad and Tobago resources, because Tobago as a ward, we only have 6 miles of water around our low tide from shore. 6 miles of water, nautical miles. Yeah.
But is that kind of political power given or taken, though?
Let's repeat the question for me one more time.
With what Tobago is asking for, what you're asking for, is that type of political power given or is it taken?
Well, we are saying you have to give it to us. It's all right. And when you know you're right, It's a different thing. So we're not going pretty please, sir. Let's say we're ready for it now. And when we say that, that's it. But you see, I give my colleague Father Augustine the opportunity to lead, but never give a boy a man job. Never ever. I learned that lesson. Never ever. You see why these guys still catching crayfish? With lobster, we looking for bigger things. You know what I mean? We playing chess and playing chicken pets. It's just a different kind of game. You all know crayfish? You know crayfish, right?
Yeah, for
Crayfish,
sure. Yeah.
right? So these guys looking for crayfish is lobster we're looking for. So Tobago's supposed to be looking for lobster right now. Bigger things. Yeah, these guys picking up
Wait,
little
wait, wait, wait. So, remember, we're not from Tobago on here, so we need some
all
clarity.
right. Yes, yes,
You
yes.
don't understand how. So you were the deputy or the deputy prime minister, kind of like um
But I was the deputy
of
chief secretary. Deputy chief
right,
secretary, right?
right.
But it's
But I just
my
use that word
yes,
because for understanding purpose.
right, yes.
Right. But you're the deputy chief secretary in Tobago, which is equivalent to like, in our system to that of like a deputy kind of prime minister ish. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um there was another person who was the chief or the head or like the kind of like leader of Tobago or leader of the house.
I gave the position to. I had to give him the position because in the party's constitution, it's a political leader that takes the position. If he doesn't want it, he can give it to someone else. So, as a political leader and the founder of the party, the chief secretary was my position to take. But you have a strategy, and the strategy was all of us must work together for the greater good of Tobago. In order for Tobago to get its freedom, we need some on the ground, some in the sky, some on the water. We need to place people strategically where we think that they can do work. But sometimes you leave a man to watch and he's watching his own business. And that's what happened in this particular case, right? What should have been a great advancement of our self determination became the biggest stumbling block. And that's why everything fell to the ground. Yeah.
So what are your chances to become the future chief secretary of Tobago?
Well, it's good as any and better than many. Um, and let me say this also: there are three main parties in Tobago. Three main parties. Well, two main parties in Tobago, I should say, which is the PNM and the PDP. All right. The PDP is the only party within the last 21 years to have defeated the PNM. I want to repeat that. The PDP was the only party led by myself, right? Was the only party within the last 21 years to defeat the PNM. We defeat the PNM completely. We won all 15 seats, all. And they stole back one seat in the dead of night. Stole it back. Yeah? By slight
So
margin.
there you have it. A brand new political party led by yourself, Mr. Juke. You beat an established party in the PNM, all the seats in the house.
All seats. They are around for 65 years, the PNM. They are the strongest party in the country, literally. They are like Germany. You have to respect them. You just cannot take them for granted at all. They are very, 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 very strong and well resourced and well organized machinery. But David beat Goliath, right? In spite of his strength and his armor, he beat him. And ever so often, when God gets ready to liberate a people, he sends a little David sometimes. Someone with fight in him. And so that's what Tobago is now a liberated people. We are under cruel and unreasonable management still, led by Father Augustine. But
So how
we are liberated nonetheless.
so how have the people of Tobago been treated over the last 20 some years that they would just vote out a whole political party all the seats and give it to a brand new. Now, what were they saying to the people at the time?
Well, the question you have asked here is the same thing the Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, is asking, what Watson really telling them people in Tobago? You know? and let me simply say to you, it's nothing new I'm really saying to these people in Tobago, you know. I'm not saying anything really new or different to the people in Tobago. It's just that whenever I walk into the room, I take the stage, I bring with me hope. I bring with me sincerity, truth, love for the people. I bring with me a history of fighting for people, because I used to be a trade unionist. I think the last great successful trade unionist in the country, really. There are others alive still, but I mean, no disrespect to them. They're disappointment. They're all a disappointment currently now. Yeah, yeah, they're really a disappointment. So I mean, I came as someone straight out from the ground up, you know. And so when I brought that to politics, people saw a sincere man who is genuine, a man who would fight, a man with the ability, and they trust me because I'm natural. I'm not the kind of politicians who make up and fake up and try to be that. I'm just natural. Anybody could talk to me anytime, and I could show up any place. Yeah. So I'm that kind of
Okay.
person.
Yeah, because
Good.
I was saying, if you don't know where you have been, you don't know where you'll be going. And I
Precisely.
think you're right, extremely versed where your history is concerned. Now, one of the questions I'm actually going to ask you is you spoke about cultural differences between the people of Tobago and Trinidad, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is the main cultural difference that you can pinpoint at this stage? Well, obviously, it was through
All right.
history.
Tobago is more homogeneous. Tobago is not as diverse and mixed or cosmopolitan country. We are really African country, and the African tradition is very deep in Tobago. Right? When the Africans, Trinidadians are different from those in Tobago. The African in Tobago, they understand the value of land. The Africans in Tobago understand the value of family. Yeah? They understand the value of house. They understand the value of education. Yeah. The Africans in Tobago work hard. They're honest people. Yeah, and so that makes them a little bit different. The way we socialize, the way we interact is different. Now, being in bed with Trinidad for over 120 something years, definitely the influences in Trinidad is now steep in Tobago, but not totally. You will still find that though a house is more expensive in Tobago, the average black person in Tobago will build a far bigger house than those in Trinidad, right? And that's because we still have neighbors come and give you a hand. The cultural differences. Yeah. We have something in Tobago called harvest, which is every village will have their turn. It's a Sunday, and you go to anybody's house and eat and drink. You eat and drink the best food. They don't even have to know you. Once you show up, they feed you. We call it a harvest, right? See, I think it's the only place in the world where that takes place. Yeah, and it's normally a big event, and it's a moving of the people. So Tobago has its own culture. We understand what making foreigners taking cassava before they had cornflakes. We used to take the cassava, you strain it, you know what I mean, and you take the what remaining fiber that remain, and you patch it in this big copper that used to have to hold water a long time. You know what I'm talking about? Or you guys don't know what you're talking about, the copper, and you have some
Oh, calabash.
We know
no, not calabash,
cornflakes. We
copper.
know cornflakes.
Cornflakes, so
We
young
know
guys, right?
cornflakes.
So before we had cornflakes,
Mm,
we have something called farine,
mm,
right? And that farine is where you will grate the cassava, wring it out, and then you take the body of the cassava and you patch it over a big copper pot. It's a copper pot made from copper. Big pot, big pot. Very, very big, Could be about 5 feet wide, you know. And you will patch it, and then you put that in your tea, and it swells, and you eat that. So you're full. So that was a part of the tradition, I mean, it still exists. Tobagonian, we have something called Benny balls, which bear something that resembles sesame seed, but it's not sesame seeds, banana seeds, very nutritious. And yeah, you will plant it in a garden, and then you will you will make your own little sweets with that. You put some sugar with it, etc., and you eat that, and it's very healthy, man. You know, so these are tradition for Tobago. So when Trinidadians come to Tobago, they will say, "I want some benebol and red mango." It's a tradition.
Mhm.
We are accustomed eating a lot of fish rather than chicken. Nah, but now the white fowl is coming into a kitchen. You know what I mean? This 8 week fowl is coming into a kitchen now. Long time when you see you want to make a cook, you will go by your neighbor and get a fowl, a yard fowl, you know, and you cook
Mhm.
that fowl. So the average black persons in Tobago, young people, learn to cook from young because from since 10, 11, you're going to cook with your partners. It's a different socialization, and we have to understand that we have to preserve what we have. We have to preserve it because we lose it, and what will we become?
Okay. Question for you, Mr. Du. I can play devil's advocate here.
Yeah,
Now, the French occupied and owned Haiti for 179 years, right? Not comparing Trinidad to France, but
yeah,
you said that over 300,000 people from Tobago live and work and contribute to Trinidad and Tobago, but mainly Trinidad.
yeah,
Now, let's let we walk in the future a little bit. Let's say your goal and your vision is accomplished.
yeah.
Do you think that Trinidad would now require some type of payment or severance package as a show of good faith? Hey, okay, thank you for all you did. We the men know we grew up, but we need this from you before you can go. What would you say to that?
No, that can't happen. A matter of fact, Trinidad owes us right now, even as I speak. Trinidad is plundering our resources. They are drawing from Block 22. Natural gas is going to Trinidad. Zoom to Trinidad. They're drawing from Poinciana. Natural gas is going to Trinidad. Zoom. And in the next 2 to 3 years, they'll be drawing from the Calypso field. That's the field with the 3.9 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. So they're drawing from more gases and are carrying a pipeline to Trinidad. Yeah, they're piping into Trinidad, even as we speak. So if we don't act fast enough, they will bleed all of that out, you know, and leave us with nothing.
My grandmother once talked about a Barbados that would allow, well, the neighbors would, she would go by neighbors and eat as well too, or just like me. I think it's a festival or a particular day you mentioned, right? That's a Barbados now that has gone through the others for the most part, right? That's a Barbados that really and truly you don't see that type of thing anymore, right? And I'm hoping
But
that
why is that? Why is that?
possibly,
Why we don't see it anymore?
I think it's a culture now. It's a different type of culture, and as I mentioned before, you
Who is
came, or
influencing the Barbados culture?
pardon me.
You are in
I think
charge. You are
I
in our
think I think I
population.
I think really and truly, each and every one of us, as I mentioned, classism. I mentioned it in a serious way before you came on. I said there's a high level of classism in Barbados. I think to the point as well. When I didn't mention this here before you came up, I can mention it now. Crabs in a barrel. What happens when there's crabs in a barrel. Everybody is trying to climb on top. So that is something that you don't see people now. Obviously, going by the neighbors. Sometimes there are people who haven't seen their neighbors in months. You know, in
Yeah,
months because they don't even talk. They
can you
don't talk.
blame it on social media? The people are
But
just have
that's
their
that's
heads
that's another thing.
buried down in their WhatsApp and their social media, their TikTok,
Mhm.
their IG, and
That is
once they have that, they have 20 friends right in front of them, and they see no one
correct.
else around them.
Correct. 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 So there's no need to go outside now. Now, the other question I'm going to ask is in terms of, in Barbados, in Tobago, is it a situation where you have the extreme wealthy and then the extreme poor? It's a very small country, but
Yeah.
is there a plain cited case of segregation there in
No,
Tobago?
there is no rich and poor in Tobago. As a matter of fact, let me tell it to you guys, there is no black billionaire in Trinidad and Tobago. We have Chinese billionaires in Trinidad and Tobago. We have Syrian billionaires in Trinidad and Tobago. We have the Caucasian and the white French Creole billionaires in Trinidad and Tobago. We have Indian billionaires in Trinidad and Tobago. But we have no black billionaires in Trinidad and Tobago. None. They have destroyed every single one of them. Every single one. All right. But I intend that Tobago and Trinidad must have black billionaires. Should I become a prime minister? No, 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 no. That must be, because it says something for the ethnic stream to which you belong. Right? The prime minister who's currently there is saying that black people were not doing so good, but what has he done? He has done nothing to help them. Let me just go back a bit. You had asked me a question earlier, and I think I didn't answer it thoroughly. If there was a relationship between Barbados and Tobago, yes, there is. Right? A number of persons in the Belmana riot were from Barbados. A number of persons. Yeah? Because when slavery abolished, a lot of persons came from Barbados to Tobago also too. Right? So that was really mentioned in history. A lot of persons, some persons from that Belmana riot that took place in 1876 were from Barbados. They came there as workers. But they would have lost their stocks eventually over time. You know what I mean? But yeah, some folks came from Barbados. For sure.
So following up on what Ramon has said about the culture in Barbados not being so close knit anymore, to the credit of the new globalization, everybody on the phone, everyone wants to be like what they see. Now, for a small island like Tobago, once and when they become you become fully independent, do you think that that would be something that you have to contend with as well, in terms of having such a close, strong culture being infiltrated now by a global system with agendas? How would you say you would fare against that?
Naturally, like a cancer, it will eat at you, but you have to stop it. And this is where leaders must be strong, must be insightful, they must be visionary, and they must be people driven, right? In China, they don't have internet, these kids on phone all night, You know what I mean? In some countries, they ban certain things. So for the greater good of your people, you have to protect them. You know, in Singapore, you don't do as you want. Singapore came out in the 1960s, poor, broken, drugs, heroin, prostitution. But when Lee Kuan Yew took over, he had some steel in him. And he said, look, we are going to pay our politicians within 5% of what the corporate world is paying. So you upgrade the salary. Our politicians will be above corruption. Anybody caught in corruption, jail. The same thing with this China right now. Xi Jinping, once you're in corruption, in jail you. You have to start by making hard rules. In Singapore, if you're true, chewing may get locked up. If you catch up with drugs and you declare it, you might save you. Otherwise than that, you might find yourself with a death penalty. So you have to understand that you have to protect the generation. Countries that protect their generation also protect their culture and their heritage. You will find in throughout the world where Indian people are, they'll always tend to wear the sari and whatever clothes they wear, and they will always cook their food. I've seen Indians around the world, different places, right? And they will always observe their culture. The same thing with the Arabic people, right? Or the Syrians, etc. What they call the Arabic people. They tend to observe their culture also. The black people, when a dashiki, at best is his culture sometimes. You know what I mean? When a dashiki is the best. We represent our culture. We have to do more than that. We have to teach our culture to our people. They have to fall in love with it. They have to understand the way we speak broken English, that is part of our culture. And that shouldn't change. You shouldn't have to speak properly to be recognized. Yeah? If they can't understand, let them get an interpreter. What's that? English? I'm making
Well,
sense?
I'm seeing, yeah, I'm seeing
Agreed,
here.
agreed.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm seeing here, crime in terms of violence and crime in Tobago. What are your thoughts on that? There has been an unprecedented 16 murders. This is in 2024. 16 being unprecedented, the number 16. So
Yeah.
crime rate
Barbados
started
has how much? How much Barbados has right now?
49, 49,
49.
49.50, 49.50.
I ain't bad at all, I mean, we'll have over 307,000 people, right?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah. But no, yes, about that. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, we have about 40,000 people on the island. We have 25 or a little more.
Correct. So you think that the level of crime is starting to rise? You think that is an area of concern?
It's an area of concern, but it has to do with leadership. I always say leadership. Crime has to do with leadership. When I was going to school, there were some teachers who, when they come into the classroom, it was like they weren't there. Class continued making noise and people do what they wanted to do, even though the teacher was there. But there's some other teachers, when they enter the classroom, everybody's quiet. Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, fellas. Well, thank you very much. We want to take some comments. We were getting a few coming in. So you want to backtrack and just acknowledge some of the persons who have been contributing on the live. Um, so I just want to put up a few here. Nigel Newton, who said that Mr. Juke was correct, that history must be corrected in the interest of the citizens of Tobago. Daniel said that he don't think anybody fought for Barbados. Caribs came and left, and the Portuguese did the same thing. Then the English came. Square 4 said Queen Isabella, the Spanish Queen, probably buried some of her wealth down in there. That's why they dig unless the bird, the pirate used to be down in there. Also, the bird. The king said the Africans that were taken into Trinidad were mainly from the Yoruba tribe. Mainly,
I think you need to say Yoruba. The Yoruba.
yeah, Yoruba tribe. Well, the Tobago tribes were mainly Igbos. Says Tobago'S. He was trying to ask earlier if
Yeah.
for a future if Barbados and Tobago could have gotten a merger, so he called it Tobago'S. And Tobagonians and traditional Barbadian were very similar. Right?
Well, anything is possible.
Major Newton again is saying honestly, yeah. Major Newton is saying honestly, the African people in the Caribbean must vigorously re-engage the decolonization process if they're able to truly be free and independent. We had Annette Wood saying the night, so the night to her.
Good night.
Yeah. Sheepdog all the way in Ireland is saying
Okay, very good.
revisionism is no good. The globalists will eat ye up, meaning us, for what we have and build accordingly. Um, he said, Pedro says, Rowley ain't giving up Tobago. Marinette said, Tobago's resources something nice for the country of Trinidad and Tobago. Peter King came back. He said, I think Tobagans will live together like your marriage happily ever after. Then he came back and said, Tobagans are both African oriented. Nigel Lucan is saying, yes, Mr. Juke, the system is uniquely African. It's the bedrock of our former and future greatness. Marinette said, cassava was a staple of Barbados. That culture is no longer. Starch for clothing was even made from cassava.
That's right.
Philip was that.
I remember that
Philip
well.
was that. Yeah. Philip was that saying Tobago and Barbados have real historic connection. But Ramon or even Nigel, you could read the rest of the comments.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, if you wish.
Go ahead, Nigel.
Okay. All right. Next comment. All right. Peter King says we got to preserve we cuckoo and we bred
Very
from
good,
cuckoo.
very good. We know them things, man. Good cookie, man. How
For
the
sure.
Barbados cookie taste?
Amazing. Square Four said, Mr. Duke, did you ever hear that one the Spanish flotilla ship called the Amanda was sink off the Caribbean waters? Could it be near Tobago? She used to send her ships to bring out the gold from Peru. You
Well,
familiar with that?
I'm not Amanda. I don't know the name Amanda. There are a couple ships that are sunk in Tobago. There was about one of the largest war that took place in Tobago was between the French and the Dutch, and those ships were sunken right in the harbor of Scarborough, and they still remain there to this day. Still remain there to this day.
Yeah. Next comment.
Historians on this, in the comments.
Nigel Newton, we have abandoned our African identity and have fallen victims of a self-negating acculturation process. All right, Mr. Newton, top name there, so boss. Pedro Jamon, them is communists. You prefer that system? I think he's referring to when we were speaking about Singapore and the other
Yeah.
examples you're looking at.
Okay, right.
Sheepdog said classism, etc., is a mindset. Time to build your own community.
Very good, very good.
Marinette says the Irish were shipped off to this region is true. The building of the early years of the islands did not happen mainly through Irish efforts.
Yep.
Having their own conversation in the comments there. Pedro Gemma says, I prefer to protect myself, not government to protect me. They'll own you that way. Fair. Next comment. Sheepdog, don't be talking in relation to black, etc. That's playing the game. I detest that. Okay, Sheepdog. Next comment.
That's a comment
Peter
tonight,
King
yeah?
says, yeah, man. They came to Africa and stole our broken English and made it English, just like how they stole our Hebrew language out of the land of Canaan. Oi, that is an alternate view. I like that one though. Burnett says neo-colonialism and economic management by the developed countries promotes or maintains classism as a template of Western civilization. All right, that's the end of the comments there. We've had some lively feedback from our beautiful alternate viewers today.
Yeah. Well, usually we have a lot of interaction. The alternative viewers love the interaction with us. And then we had Mr. Juke on tonight, which definitely brought another side to the discussion. Remember, we started out with living black in Barbados, so we also had living black in Tobago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we were able to share similarities. Mr. Juke gave us it from his perspective in terms of how Tobago does not have the class system per se, the whole Barbados system is structured. Um, so we were able to compare the two and see the differences in between Barbados and indeed Tobago. Barbados had its claim to self-determine in 1966. We went to independence, and then in 2021, we went to a republic. No, I don't necessarily celebrate republicanism because the people of the country were not involved. Right? There was no referendum, there was no vote, there was nothing that included the people of Barbados in taking this country onto a republic, but a parliamentary vote of members of parliament who have all the seats in the house. The ceremony was held in the dead of the night during the midst of COVID, and the people were still on lockdown. So it was not a ceremony for the masses. that they could have participated and feel a part of republicanism, not like the independence experience. Many of our forefathers, grandmothers, aunts, and uncles could tell us about 1966 independence when they went on the Garrison Savannah for the raising of the Barbados flag for our first flag, for our national anthem.
Yes.
Right? We were given that opportunity. We were not given that opportunity with the Republic. So Mr. Juke is saying that Tobago deserves the opportunity to choose.
That's right.
Right? Barbados had a choice, we exercise it. Jamaica had a choice, we exercise it.
Right.
Guyana had a choice, they exercise it. Jamaica had a choice, they exercise it. And as we speak, Jamaica is bringing a bill to their parliament to go on to Republican status.
Hmm.
So, as Mr. Juke said, there are no other countries in the world that are wards in a modern sense and in a modern day. And if we're speaking about better futures for the Caribbean, placed on the agenda, and you could even say, even as far as the level of CARICOM, right, should be on the agenda of Tobago's self-determination, if that is indeed what Tobagonians want for the future of their country. Now, I say all of that to say, and I end with the CARICOM point on purpose. The same way Tobago is a ward of Trinidad, I say that all Caribbean countries are wards of CARICOM, right, which realistically benefit economically and politically and legally and everything Trinidad. Right? So the Treaty of Chaguaramas, as we know where Chaguaramas is, right in Trinidad. And so I'm saying, even the Treaty of Chaguaramas and CARICOM needs to be revisited, and we need more effective and meaningful ways of engaging with our regional brothers and sisters on a very platonic and equal level, meaning that when we walk away from meetings, that we actually have enforceable ideas and policies and not just thought shops. So, for example, if we had a proper and functioning CARICOM, with probably a CARICOM parliament also, Tobago could have filed papers also, through a process to have this process of self-determination worked out at a higher level than the individual country of Trinidad, in which we could assume or believe that Tobago may not get its just due. So that was just my idea and suggestion for a more meaningful and feasible way for Tobago to see its future, and for also the Caribbean to see its future in terms of working hand in hand together for a brighter and much better region. So that was my 2 cents.
Very good. Very good. Let me hasten to say, gentlemen, that in the constitutional amendment bill placed in Parliament, Trinidad agreed, to give Tobago self-determination, Yeah. They said there will be equality of status between the island of Trinidad and the island of Tobago. They went on to say that Tobago would be able to freely exercise its right to self-determination, and to freely pursue its economic, social, and cultural development without any external influence. That's in the Constitution, but it is in the preamble, only in the preamble. Now, if you know anything about a preamble is a story before the story, so it has no real legal weight. It is something that you kind of use to set the tone for the real story that is coming. So to me, it is valueless, and I want them to place that in the act. But they have already acknowledged it. They know that. It's not a favor. It's a universal right we have. It's just that before I came to the scene politically, Tobagoans never had the discussion. Tobago was speaking about a little more rights. We want a little more sea. We want a little more money. We want a little more powers. I don't want that. I want all of our rights. Every single right we have, we want it. And let us decide what we want to do with that right. That's our right. We want it, all of it. Trinidad got their rights and they went for independence. When they went for independence, it is Trinidad and Tobago went in. But Trinidad and Tobago, the country, not Tobago, the ward. It's not coming from. Tobago, the ward was not consulted. Trinidad, the country went. So we had the opposition leader and the leader of government went to England, say they agree that Tobago should be independent. No one went from Tobago. Tobago was not consulted. We are just a ward. So we need to revisit that old slave act from since 1887 made by Queen Victoria and was later amended by her, later amended to make Tobago a ward. We need to revisit that. We need to repeal that and replace that with a more modern act that speaks to Trinidad and Tobago in the way we want Tobago to be seen by Trinidad and the way we want to see ourselves. It's difficult, but we have a new generation of thinkers like yourselves. You guys are the new generation, and eventually you guys will be taking over the world, right? Because the older folks are out around the world right now. There are new leaders coming up around the world right now, Yeah. Even though Trump is old, Trump is a new guy, yeah. He's from a different block. He's not from the old block. He was no senator and this kind of stuff, you know what I mean? Congressman and this kind of stuff. He wasn't that. He just come from outside. And so we need a fresh pair of eyes right now in the politics in the Caribbean in order to move things in the way that the people can relate to.
Agree. Time for lobster, done with the crawfish now.
Yeah, man. Done with the crayfish, time for lobster, man.
Mm-hmm.
But are there any rivers in Barbados? I can't remember seeing any when I came there.
Said rivers?
Rivers in Barbados, the rivers. Rivers.
No, not that I know about. Not any rivers.
Yeah. And that's the thing about the Caribbean, eh? Barbados have beautiful beaches, beautiful, pristine beaches.
Yeah, there's some fresh water. There's some fresh water down Three Houses, or used to have some fresh water down Three Houses, and I believe
Spring,
there's some
not rivers.
crayfish already rivers.
Stream.
Yeah.
When you guys come to Tobago, I'll carry to the river, man.
Crayfish or something.
And you pick up a spoon or see some crayfish below there. Small crayfish. Looking like lobster, but small. And more soft.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
But Ramon, you can have your point of opinion. Then NIGEL, we're gonna wrap up after quick.
Well, I can do more like the vote of thanks. I just want to say a heartfelt for you coming away from your busy schedule. Lots of history lessons. Learned so much about Tobago tonight. Not even so. I want to thank you and the viewers as well too. They're checking with history lessons as well too. Great to be. Obviously, can do some more research going forward and maybe visit at some point in time.
Yes, please.
Yeah, man. Show you up. So I want to thank you very much for coming on the show and taking up your time. It was an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
Thank
Mr.
you so
Duke.
much.
Duke, for the intellectual exchange. Thank you for the history lesson. Thank you for the transparency and the vigor in which you speak about your country, which is it is well deserved, and you're doing a great job. As Ramon said, I like to travel, so no Tobago's on the map.
Yeah, man. Your home. Mi casa, su casa.
Okay, no Tobago's on the map. But again, I think this history lesson was very pivotal. I don't think this was common knowledge, though the information is out there. I don't think it is in the common zeitgeist in the region. So thank you very much for exposing us to that. We here Alternate Views are lifelong learners. We pride ourselves on, continuing to learn and embracing new and emerging technologies, information, mindsets. So I can see you being a good leader of something innovative and new. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing all the information, and best of luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I want you to continue that fight, Mr. Joe. Continue that
Yeah.
fight. You seem very passionate about it.
You have to.
Use that and continue that fight. Get
You have
that
to.
lobster.
Yeah.
Get that
Yeah.
lobster.
Yeah. We're pursuing the big thing, man. The big thing. The big thing. The big thing.
Before we go, I wanted to read another passage from Living Black in Barbados.
Yes.
And it's time, the song is from a popular musician in Barbados whose name was Mr. Impact. So I just wanted to read some of the lyrics. Ironically, it says here that in the first decade of this century, one of the worrying developments in Barbados' changing economy was the takeover of the long-established Barbadian white-owned businesses by businesses from Trinidad and Tobago. Prominent among these was the Barbados Shipping and Trading, which comprised manufacturing, tourism, insurance, property management, retail, and wholesale business. This conglomerate, though owned by white investors, incorporated a large number of highly skilled and trained black persons into middle and senior management. There were very few reports of racial discrimination or intimidation in that organization. The takeover by Neil and Massey Group in 2008 has created a culture where some of the staff had become comfortable with the ethos and were environment under the previous owners, finding it uncomfortable to now exist under foreign owners. There was a sense that they were being recolonized by business interests of another country. In the same year, at the pick of the crop finals, Mr. Empire expressed a similar sentiment in one of his calypsos. It goes, it goes like this. Where is my country? Where is my country? Where is my identity? Our symbols are getting few from the Barbados that I once knew. And I want to know where will we go and how can we grow if we continue so.
Hmm.
And you keep telling me that I should not complain when I see my country going down the drain. And that was taken from Living Black in Barbados. And I'm very sure that it could relate to Tobago as
Exactly.
well.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that was my parting comment. A big thank you from the world all the way from, St. John. So good night to you, Dale, and all of the people in St. John. Dale is saying good night to all alternative viewers, KEMAR Short, Ramon Goodman, Major Franklin, and guest Mr. Watson Jew. So good night to you, Dale, on behalf of the panel. Um, Thank you for tuning on. So we at the end of the show. Yes, Sheepdog, I did listen to the song "The Hell of Barbados" by
Mhm.
Dempsey. I did listen. So we're now at the end of the program. So I want to thank you personally, Mr. Juke, for coming on once more, for taking the time out to come. Ramon, thank you very much. And Nigel, also thank you very much. We're going to have a show next week. This was supposed to be our last show, but we have to go down because alternative viewers are requesting for us to keep it going, and we have to keep it going because we have to please the audience. The floor is open for Mr. Juke to come back anytime he wishes. As I just said, we are lifelong learners, and we want to thank you for coming on. Nigel again, Ramon, all of the alternative viewers, thank you very much. Tune in next week.
Yeah.
Next week, Thursday, 7 p.m. We're going to see you all. Any final comments before we leave, Mr. Juke?
I would say thanks to all of you. I mean, the interview was very, very exciting. I think I enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoy actually being in Tobago and talking to my colleagues in Barbados and seeing that you all young man, I'm very happy to know that you all are interested in your own country. The trouble is that sometimes we don't have sufficient young people interested in the country. They're interested in what the country could do for them, party, money, work. But how the country runs is also very important. And keep it up, gentlemen. Barbados is a lovely country. I've been there a couple of times. Well, and maybe I'm due for a visit again. Right? But a short, I'm due for a visit again sometime soon. And you all are due for a visit here soon. But for now, we have an election coming up in Trinidad here within the next 6 months or less. That's the national elections. We are filling 2 seats in Tobago. That's the east and the west. The rest are seats are in Trinidad. And we hope to win those 2 seats. If we win those 2 seats, when we win those 2 seats, we will become the decision makers because the ball will jam in Trinidad. Trinidad sometimes votes along the lines of race, Indian Africans, and they have their both parties on there. But Tobagonians is Africans, and so we vote on issues, and we vote on the Tobago self-determination issue, and those who can deliver on that and manage well. I hope I will. I hope and I pray I'll get the favor of the people, and I expect so. So all things being equal, gentlemen, I want to invite you in advance for the inauguration, right? Or the coronation, you call it. Well, there'll be two things. So until then, it's a pleasure and good night to Barbados and its people across there. Love, love, love from Tobago. All right. My pleasure.
Love.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Have a good night. So, fellas, that is it for tonight. We are going to see the alternate viewers next week, right?
For sure.
Sure, man. Sure. I'm glad you're getting done with this season, boy. Getting done with this season, bro. Because winter is a nice now. Winter is a nice, boy. I lock on and lock in, boy. Lock on and lock in. It's a door. What we call it? Door. Everything is a door.
Everything is door. Alternative.
Everything is door, boy. It's a door.
That's funny, man.
I know the alternative viewers feel the same way, man. It's a door, boy. A door.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man, for sure. Fantastic interview. Fantastic. And I wish him all the best, for sure. Seems as though he's passionate about, seeing. I'm glad he clarified. I'm glad he cleared up, the difference between autonomy and exactly himself. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, man.
Alrighty, fellas. Have a good night.
Yeah,
alternate
man.
view. See you next week.
Blessed belated to Nigel. Blessed belated. I don't hear my guy here. You don't know. He doesn't know what. He don't know what happened. Right?
I appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you.
For sure, bro. For sure. We can link. For sure.
All right.
Good.
Alternate viewers, have a great night.
Alternate viewers. See you later.